People, hello, and anyone, everybody. This is Jason from the Hellenic Wolf channel. I might add, not podcast exactly. And today we have a guest that personally I find very interesting. I don't know Tom very well, but I hope that we can be acquaintances after the chat, and I hope that I can learn something more from him. Because I see you, Tom, already as a very interesting persona, but I want to know more of you and your background. So, but before all that, please let us know of who you are in a minute. What are you famous for, maybe, if I can say so, in Instagram, and we can go from there.
Sure, man. Yeah. Instagram has kind of been a project for the last few years where I've been sharing mostly training related material. My sort of experiences and interest in physical culture, bodywork, embodiments, and the more philosophical and sort of introspective nature of bodily practices anyway. So that's been my main sharing on this platform, Instagram, the last few years. It's one of the number of things that I do and that I'm interested in, and that I spend a lot of time practicing and researching. And I find it quite an interesting forum to share, both through visual and through the written arts as well. So it's an interesting form to do that. So it's something that I've found fascinating the last few years, and connected with a lot of people, and managed to share a lot of my interests and views, and move maybe more towards a sort of a holistic integration of the body with sort of the mind, and more sort of so-called quote unquote spiritual side of an embodied practice. So that's basically what I'm interested in sharing through the medium of Instagram, and yeah, one of the many things that I do in my life.
Yeah, excellent. So, by the way, you said something that's very important. You said one of the many things that I do in my life. And sometimes I believe, I don't know if you agree on that, Tom, but I think that many people see themselves as they basically, how can I express that? But they basically have one identity, and then they get stuck with that identity. And if that goes away, they get depressed and they kill themselves sometimes even. So let's talk a little bit about that. I don't know why how I stumbled upon that thought, but I think that you might be able to clarify a few things for me. So what is your thought about identity? And do we have many identities? What is the self, in your opinion? How can we be flexible with all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different angles to approach that question from, and being a social scientist, my background in education is in the philosophy of science, and as an anthropologist as well. So identity is a big part of that, looking at differences and similarities in people's identities across cultures as well. So it's always been a very strong interest of mine, is to compare and contrast identities historically, and then also contemporary as well, and then place myself in the middle of all that, and really reflect upon my own sense of identity and agency in that process as well. And I think identity is very much linked to creativity as well, and you often get extremely creative people that have more sort of fluid identities, or identities that are less sort of rigid in their nature, and they have a lot of possibilities and abilities to be able to shift their identities across time and space, and that can have its advantages and disadvantages, of course. Having a more stable, fixed identity can often help people structure their lives and their practices and their relationships a lot better. So there's no sort of one that's better or another. When it comes to identity, it's more of a curiosity and a fascination for me, is looking at ways identities can be shaped, and ways that identities can be expanded. And certainly for me, identity is something that I don't hold as being something very static. It's something that I view as something very organic over time, and it has many different impulses and inputs, whether it's biological or genetic or physiological or environmental, or or even psychological as well. So there's a lot of sort of personality in identity and shaping identity across time. And I've always used my own experience, my own practice, and my own reflections and self-analysis, if you like, over the years to understand cultural identity as a scientist, as a social scientist, as a teacher as well, and found that very useful in sort of engaging in my own sense of peace and sense of harmony and sense of uncertainty as well at different stages in my life when it comes to my own personal changing identity. So it's a lifelong endeavor, I think, is engaging in one's own identity and the struggles that come with that, and also the actual flourishing part of finding identities that really resonate with you in certain times and certain contexts and certain relationships you have in life. So yeah, I would say, in some identity, in the study of identity, and the appreciation and experience of identity is a big part of my practice and my research, for many, many years, definitely.
Yeah, that's wow. I have never thought it that way, Tom. So to be honest, but it makes sense. Tom, what I'm thinking now, and I want your opinion too, is that many people, from my observation at least, over the past 30 years that I'm alive, is that many people are afraid to take leaps of faith towards something that maybe they desire, but they cannot really take the leap or find the courage to step up and do something about something. And we both know what we are facing the past 2 years now with our current events in this earth, and how people, a few people step up, say something, they do something, but many people do not. But what people forget sometimes is that there are also the people that they want to step up, but they don't. So there are the people who step up because they want to. There are the people who do not step up because they do not want to step up. They find it stupid to step up. But there are also people who are afraid and to step up, but they want to. So from what I see over the past 30 years, from my own self, is that the only reason to find truth, because it's like you said, it's a lifelong journey. It's not something you do in 5 years. It's not a course you just do and you're fine. Something that you have to really be committed to, and to always be in a fluid, like you said, in a fluid state, in more or less what you said. I'm not sure, but so my question to you is, how would you advise a man or a woman to stop being fearful and face the unknown? And I know that's a very generic question, but because I've seen your Instagram, and we are going to talk a little bit later, in a couple of minutes later, but how do you, as Tom, if somebody, a young man comes now 30 years old, how would you advise him to take the first steps? What is the process there?
Yeah, I mean, I've stopped giving out advice a long time ago. I worked many, many years as a coach, and realized that was a lot of part of my own sort of egoic sort of identity forming as well, as trying to sort of put across this impression that I knew something and I was skilled at something, and I had a lot to teach and to share with people. And I sort of naturally moved over time away from sort of giving advice to more showing my experiences. So advising is a very interesting sort of idea when it comes to the coach-student relationship, and I think it's important, at least for me as a coach and someone who's been a mentor and a guide for many years for younger people, to kind of nurture the relationship I have with students, not on a sort of a very much I know better than the student, and the student has to sort of live up to expectations from me over many years. It's more of me like trying to encourage younger people to develop their own sense of identity, their own sense of personality, their own skill set, And that's through trial and error, and that's through making mistakes, and that's through learning from those mistakes and learning to make perhaps more informed choices about the different experiences that they have, and understanding that, consequence is going to be, there's no matter what you do, you're going to face a consequence, and whether that's something that you dislike, or whether you find uncomfortable, or whether something you can really thrive on, it's going to be consequential in your ongoing practice over the course of your life. So normally, instead of actually giving advice to young people, if they're asking me, how am I going to get stronger, or how am I going to build muscle, or how am I going to develop more of a sort of a introspective, more spiritual sort of practice, or how am I going to integrate certain sort of mental or emotional skills into my practice, then rather than actually giving them specific advice, I'll sort of point them towards different tools and tools of awareness, we could perhaps call them, and ask them to practice and to experience and to experiment, and then come back and tell me about it, share that experience with me, and then maybe I can add a little bit more here and there, and maybe some different little sort of takeouts that can be very interesting for them, or some blind spots that I can identify, and from there they can really develop more of a wholesome sort of a deeper practice that really taps into their own sense of belief, and who they are, and where they've come from, and where they're going, and maybe some of these more superficial sort of orientated goals and expectations that they just accept externally from a society, maybe they get sort of watered down a little bit, and we can get to sort of more sort of a deeper semblance of truth within that specific person about what they want and what they desire, and what they really wish for and aim for. I think a lot of young people, they can get, especially now in the age of social media, they can get so caught up in this continual expectation about who they should be, and what they should look like, and what they should desire, and what they should dream about, and what skill set they should aim for. And I think they get a little bit lost in all this sea of information that's out there, and they often lose touch with a little bit of that beautiful essence that young people have within them, that developing that flower that's really starting to blossom within them. And not many coaches talk about that. And it's very, very important for me, at least, to actually guide a lot of young people who are asking certain questions, to actually steer them in a slightly different direction towards asking similar questions, but in a different way. And I think from there, people can, naturally and organically develop more of a sort of a rounded practice, whether that's emphasis on physical, or whether that's emphasis on intellectual, or whether that's certain emotional development that they're experiencing, because it goes in waves, right? It's like if you're 15, or if you're 20, or if you're 25, you're going to have different stages of development, whether that's interest or whether that's out of necessity. So it's not a linear path, and I think for me as a teacher, I'd rather sort of emphasize that windy road, like that river, and understanding that there are going to come curves in the river, and you're going to be washed up onto the bank occasionally, but don't give up. It's that journey down the river that is the beautiful experience in life. And I think some students that have stayed with me a long time, and that I've really had a close following for many years, they've really developed in very beautiful ways, and they've become sort of more of who they are. And it's always a little sort of a catchphrase or a piece of encouragement I give to these students, is just to continue to nurture more of who you are, rather than me telling you anything about what you ought to be.
Okay, Tom. I'll think about it, and I'll ponder about this, because makes sense. And when you were saying about the superficial, not the superficial, but the expectations from society, I was basically thinking of myself over the past 10 years, where, there are always traps in society, where you want to be something that people not want you to be, really, but they create these false idols. That's how I basically recognize them, false idols. So false richness. So instead of doing meditation, go buy a cool smartwatch that you don't need, but just go buy it, or buy an expensive shoes that you do not need. They are not reliable, they're not flexible, they're not useful for your body, but to go buy them because it's Nike, it's the new Nike. So yeah, go buy and make an Instagram post about it to show off. So I was I was going into similar traps like that. I was trying to be the man when I was early 20s, organizing parties and trying to, get the ladies, like many men in that age range. But now in my early 30s, I'm seeing things completely different. And like you say, and I don't know if it's maturity of our age, maybe if you grow up, but it's getting tiresome to follow mainstream societal indoctrination, if I can say so. It gets very energetically straining to your energy levels, to your physical, psychological levels, mental health. So, and I don't know, and I want to ask about you, but before you say your answer, I want to say that when I face only when I face difficulties, very hardships, so health problems, facing death at some point, or a breakup with a woman that I used to think that I would be forever. So only when I passed through these rituals, so these events, these traumatic experiences, only then I sat down and thought to myself, wait, is that all in life? Is that true what I'm expecting to be? Is that the road to be? Doesn't make sense anymore. So how came to be that you are searching all these truths, whether that's in body, in physical awareness, in mental awareness, spiritual awareness? How came to be? So were you always that way, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been someone who's been seeking out a lot of different forms of information, and I grew up with the father who was a philosopher and a historian, and my mother was an artist, so they were always sort of encouraging me to explore in creative ways, not only artistically but also through my body and through my intellect as well, to try and explore different avenues of potential of what it means to be a young adult, and what it means to be a growing adult, and what it means to be human, and to sort of give me these tools at a young age that I could utilize at different stages throughout my life, later in life. And some of them, I didn't even realize that I needed at a young age, but later in life I've realized that to have a full armament, as a soldier out in the field is going to be useful at some stage in life, but you never know when. So I think I've always been very curious in different modes of living, whether that's historically, or whether that's contemporary as well, or whether that's culturally. I've always traveled a lot, and I've always explored different ways of life, and to see how people find harmony, how people find sustainability, how people hunt their food, how people collect and gather, and how people share, especially the fruits of their labors as well. Different cultures across the world, and that's given me a lot of appetite and insight into my own sense of being human, what it means to be human, and how much creative potential, possibility we have in that process. We don't just have to follow the sort of the normative values that we have based in the society that we grow up in, right? I grew up in New Zealand, and they have certain expectations and certain values and certain traditions that are very common and most people follow. But for me, my sort of lens was always very, very broad. I always had that wide angle lens, and I always thought of, what if I try this, or what if this isn't true? So I think it's, and later in life, developing a bit more of a deeper sort of sort of an introspective spiritual practice with through the use of meditation and stillness practice and psychedelic plant medicines. It's given me even more of a sort of a appreciation for nature in itself, and nature being part of us at every step that we take, and that there's no real need to be stuck and align ourselves with one certain flavor in life. We can be at the sort of the at the table in the kitchen and we can be cooking up all the flavors of the world, and we can be enjoying them too, and we need not necessarily be stuck in one place. We can taste different things, and we can experience different smells, and metaphorically, and we can do that through our body and through our mind, and we can meet different people, and we can sort of take certain stages where we go very, very deep into a certain practice, and we learn a lot and we cultivate a lot, and then we leave that, we leave that be, and we don't cast it aside. We just leave it, and we just maybe move on to something else. And then maybe we'll pick back up upon where we left off, so it's never right or wrong. We never do anything in life that is the wrong choice. It's just the way that we can reflect upon those choices, and the way that we can look deeper into the reasons why we took those choices, and why we were extremely interested, and why we were maybe stuck, and why we felt depressed at this stage in our life. These are always lessons to be learned, and these are always sort of time frames that we can look back upon and see that this was needed for that stage in my life to get me to where I was. I really needed to have that period where I was alone, where I was living out in the woods, where I was standing in front of the mirror looking at myself. I needed that, and now I'm at a stage where I need people. I need to cultivate social relations. I need to share my fruits. So it comes and goes, and I think having a very sort of a deeper sort of openness and appreciation for these stages and cycles in life, then I think that leaves us in a bit more of a sort of a adaptable place to be able to make choices and to find peace in the choices that we make, knowing that they needn't be the right choices. They're just choices. And if they don't work out, then we can move on to the next choice and the next choice and the next choice. And we have this strong, stable, fundamental feet on the ground base to actually always fall back upon. So we don't actually lose touch with who we are. We are spirits of the earth, and we are grounded, and we can breathe, and we can be still, and we can reflect, and then we can move on, so we don't get bogged down. So all of these things take a long time to sort of learn and nurture, and it's like being a gardener. You just have to be patient, and the seeds will actually, they will come to fruition at some stage. Just be patient.
That was beautiful, man. I don't know what your talents are, all of them, but you have a poetic mind, I think. So probably your mother helped you there, and your father too. It shows. So 2 questions before we end this beautiful interview. So first question, Tom. I see from your Instagram that you are in Norway. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, been living here for a good number of years throughout my adult life. Yeah.
So why Norway?
Oh, just an exploration at a younger age of a beautiful part of the world, and just discovering this corner of Europe is kind of unexplored and untouched in many respects compared to the rest of Europe, and interesting way of life, interesting history, kind and smart people, and opportunities here as well for someone like me who has my particular personality and interests and love of the great outdoors, and it's just some place that has resonated with me over a long time, and it's a very, very beautiful place to be.
Yeah, it seems that way. So I'm following, regarding Norway, I'm following Andreas Bulhansen, I think is his name. Do you know him by any chance?
Yeah, I've definitely seen some of his videos. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an author as well. He's a novelist. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of, to be honest, what I think, because I have the same feelings. I think the feelings of exploration that Norway provides, it's something that's pretty romantic to any man's heart, to be honest. So from what I've discussing with friends, um, I think we all want to explore physically something. And you said priorly in the prior answer of yours that we we are based. We know who we are, and I'm getting to the understanding that if you don't connect with nature on a weekly, at least basis, you're not able to really be based very easily. You lose your base, you lose your ground, you lose your grounding, and that's why I also am getting more into outdoors, and that's why I asked you about Norway, because like you said, Norway is really at the at the end of the world, let's say, in Europe. It's literally maybe Iceland is a little bit, or Greenland, maybe less explored, but yeah, it's a nice place from what I hear. Um, so the last question is today about your training, of course, because it's the thing that I find most intriguing from what I see, at least. So tell me about your training. Why do you do all these different moves? Why do you use so many tools with your training? Why don't you just go with the classic weightlifting barbell routine?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've done a lot of stuff over the years. I've been an athlete all my life at various levels. I've been a coach for most of my life as well, and I've experienced a hell of a lot of different modalities when it comes to training, and when it comes to performance and skill acquisition, and an experience of gyms and all sorts of different sports and methodologies. And yeah, I've done a lot of stuff, and for me, it's all about really finding joy in physical practice. I've got beyond the stage now where I'm competing. I'm not competing against anyone. I'm just there for my own physical well-being and the enjoyment, and the mental health side of things that comes with having a physical practice as well. So yeah, I've just sort of whittled down over the years certain things that I find brings me a lot of joy, and is very efficient and effective for keeping me strong, keeping me mobile, keeping my joints in shape, and keeping me feeling very motivated about actually getting out there every day and moving my body. And I think the traditional, in the recent years, traditional strongman kind of training is appealed to me, because it's very raw in a sense. It's very simple. It either works or it doesn't work when it comes to making certain lifts, and just that inner sort of, that deeper sort of inner embodied essence of feeling strength is very important for me as a male, or as an athlete, or as a human, or whatever that may be. It's a very personal thing. I think a lot of people ask me, do I program my training, and can I train like you, and can you coach me this and that? And for me, it's very much there's very much a feeling based to the way that I approach my training. I have a wide repertoire of skills, if you like. Like, I know how to move equipment, and I know how to look after my body, and that sort of thing. I know about risk and reward assessment, that sort of thing. So I choose certain forms of training that both challenges me, but most importantly gives me a sense of joy about being in my body, and about being connected deeply to a sense of being strong, and feeling peace in my mind. When I'm training, when I'm lifting, then my mind is at rest, my body is taking over and just and doing the work. And it's, of course, it's all, in a sense, it's preparation. The idea of exercise is a bit of a sort of a misnomer. If we train and we work the fields, and we garden and we farm and we dig, then we don't need to exercise, because we are strong. And if you look at most cultures throughout the world, if you look at farmers, and if you look at fishermen, and if you look at gardeners, whether it's in the Mediterranean or whether it's in the South Pacific or in Asia, people are just moving their bodies sort of naturally just to do what they have to do. So I think we're a little bit skewed in the West, where we have these fancy gyms and all these beautiful pieces of equipment with shiny hand grips, and I think we get a little bit carried away there with the idea that we need to compartmentalize physicality and physical training. So I always encourage people just to look at your surrounds and see where you are, and use, whether it's trees or whether it's a shovel and a fork, or whether it's some old piece of machinery you find in the barn. Just see what you can do with it. Lift it, tie something to it, adapt, and it doesn't have to be equal weights. And you can think of your body in a sort of like a helix. Your body is like a kaleidoscope that is always looking to sort of move in and out of different levels of tension, straining here and relaxing here. And you can then begin to bring in more of a meditative practice with your breath, and you can listen to your breath, and you can actually slow down your training and work with tempo, and all of these things that you read about in different modalities of training, you can actually bring in to your own practice and make it your own. And you don't have to call it anything. You don't have to call it strongman or CrossFit or Olympic lifting or whatever. You don't have to do that. You can actually just realize that it's a physical practice that is important for me, and it brings joy for me. And if people enjoy looking at that and they want to learn about that, then I'm happy to share some of my ideas with people about that as well. But most importantly, it's about finding a connection, and a connection with the earth, and a connection with nature, and most importantly, a connection with yourself. And that's why I always recommend people develop a physical practice, not just getting lost in the mindset, this upper body confusion that a lot of people have. It's the one-way path towards depression and anxiety. So stay in the body, give yourself a break, give your mind a break, relax a bit, relax that anxiety and that pressure, and stop thinking. Just move your body and smile, feel joy. And I think you'll be on a fast track towards having a lot more peace and actually enjoyment in your life, and other aspects of your endeavors as well, and your practices.
Wow, that's exactly how I feel, but I couldn't say this in a better way. Wow, and that's probably why I asked you to come, and you kindly accepted my invitation, because it's what I believe that we should be true as people, and share the wisdom when we can, because there's maybe tomorrow we are not here, maybe we go to the other life, and that's why I'm honest with myself, because what I found the past 2 years, Tom, is that exactly what you just said in the past minutes, that I stopped being in my head. I went outside. I was doing my exercise, my stretching, my breathing exercise, my meditation outside. So we have a park nearby, and I went on the park barefoot, of course, bare feet. And it was night and day, honestly, night and day. The difference in my soul, the way you feel when you connect your bare feet on the earth, you are near the trees, you grab the trees with your bare hands. Imagine that, Tom. I mean, a human grabbing trees and being bare feet on the earth and exercising with weights. And I slowly developed a sense of connection with the earth, and started picking up things like, maybe there was a rock nearby, and in the past I would see the rock and I would say, okay, this is an object and an obstacle. But now I would see that as an opportunity to play with it. And seeing, of course, your videos, I mean, you are far ahead than I am, but you are truly an inspiration to me, and I hope that you can be an inspiration to many more people, because from my own heart, I felt the truth over the past 2 years, and I've never been happier to do that outside and have that feeling, no competing with anybody else, enjoying, like you said, enjoyment, connection with the Mother Earth, nature, and really be flexible, like you said, vortexes. That's beautiful, man. And thank you for sharing all that. And having said that, of course, now, please let people know where can people find all that beautiful, wisdom that you share.
Yeah, thanks. It's the nature that's around us that's the greatest teacher, and it's the truth that's found in nature that's authentic. And ironically enough, the more that we spend in that space, then we actually find that pathway back to that authentic truth within our own nature as well. So it's this cyclical engagement that we just cannot stop engaging. We must continue to engage. We must continue to engage with gratefulness and with love and with perseverance. And as you said, if we share that, then I think we're doing our little bit for the rest of the world. We can all share our own way in our own way. And I think it's the most important thing that I could ever say for young people is to just strive to develop your own authenticity. Don't wait for it, because you can't put it off, because you're already authentic. So just be yourself, and if you need some help, then go outside and climb a tree and lift some stones and run on the sand, and you'll find the answers there. You don't need a teacher on the internet, But yeah, Primal Movers. That's where you'll find my stuff. So you can do the Googling and stuff, and also the Primal Movers podcast has a number of interesting conversations on these related topics as well. If people are interested there's some resources there as well. So yeah, it's been really great chatting, and thanks for your interesting questions. And I'm glad to hear that your practice is also developing, and that I can somehow be of inspiration to yourself and others as well.
Thank you. And thank you for coming on. It's an honor to meet you, and I hope we can do something next year maybe and see where we are with the practices and all that stuff. So having said all that, please Tom, stay for a minute after the recording. And for anybody else, I hope you enjoyed the interview, and if you did, please let us know with the comment go and comment with your impressions and your opinions, because if you do it kindly, if you do it with a civilized manner and a truthful manner, your opinion matters. Don't let other people say that they don't, they do. As long as we do that, in my opinion, which is funny, but no pun intended, as long as we do that in a civilized manner. We don't behave like, not like animals, but you know what I mean. So please like, subscribe, and see you soon. Bye-bye.